G'day everyone, I am the man called Kemosabe, the man with a plan from land down under, the man called Lucille, Lucy to his friends, the man too dangerous for YouTube, the man they tried to censor but couldn't. And this is my review of Conquest Comics' Crossroads Strive entry for the International Mangaka 100th Anniversary Special Manga Contest. I will preface this review with two facts. Firstly, Liam Gray, the author of this book and the owner of Conquest Comics, is somewhat I would consider a mate online. We're not quite friends, but I do interact with him semi-regularly. He's previously offered me some advice on my own journey to creating comics. Secondly, I can't stand reading manga. It's all backwards and upside down, it just doesn't flow well when I view it. I don't think it's as simple as flipping the artwork any more than not flipping a drawing will leave you with a well-balanced image. You should do the mirror or the flip test on every picture you draw. There are foundational and structural conventions of manga that don't work if you just flip the art. They also have way too many close-ups for my liking, too many speed lines and vertical panels. In short, I find reading manga to be a real chore. It's just one of the reasons when people say manga will replace Western comics or can act as a suitable replacement for Western comics that I strongly disagree. It's impossible for a manga made by Japanese to accurately replace what Western comics are, or at least what they were. However, manga is outselling American comics and has been for some time. I hate the fact, but I can't fault it. American comics are giving readers, particularly young readers, very few reasons to want to buy and read the books. Not just in terms of price, but also in terms of content. Even I can't argue why someone would want to read something like this over this. Liam asked me to review his books, and I was a little hesitant, mostly because of my disinterest in manga. There are some anime that I really enjoy, particularly things like Fist of the North Star and Angel Cop, the stuff that was exported to the West in the 90s before manga and anime became mainstream. I also really enjoyed Scryed and Hellsing and Gungrave and the Berserk anime, Ninja Scroll and Vampire Hunter D, but I've always struggled to follow the narrative flow of manga. They contain cultural and visual cues and shortcuts that aren't familiar and intuitive to a non-native reader, or at least they're not familiar to me. So reviewing a manga written by a guy that I respect is shaky ground, made all the more tenuous by Liam's claims. He talks big. He constantly talks about the vast skill of Mangaka Ody, his Greek prodigy. He talks about their training regimes and secret art techniques designed to increase Ody's ability and output. In short, Liam talks about Ody like Goku training in 100 times gravity on his way to Namek. What if Liam's books are less than advertised? What if I didn't like it and had to give that opinion? Your boy Zach has a no reviewing friends policy because he wants to avoid just that situation. At best I could follow the same path and refuse to review books by people I'm familiar and friendly with. It'd save hurt feelings. But I pride myself on providing real critical feedback on comics, particularly Comicscape projects. To improve, we all need people to interact with our art. And by delivering real, honest, unfiltered, constructive criticisms, I've actually made friends within the indie comic community. I've been approached by people who want that honest feedback. I'm at the point where I'm being supplied with digital copies of books for the sole purpose of reviewing them and giving that critical feedback and creating video reviews. If I start avoiding reviews to avoid hurt feelings, then none of my reviews are worth the time it takes to listen to them. So here I am, reviewing some manga. I started with Crossroads Strive, the self-proclaimed gag manga. I know some of you guys pronounce it manga, but I grew up calling it manga, and it's like Thanos and Thanos. All these kids calling him Thanos, but for the first 30 years I read comics, I was calling him Thanos, and I'm not changing that now. I'm too old, so you just have to put up with Thanos and manga. So this self-proclaimed gag manga. It starts with Mangaka Ody trying to convince Liam to enter a manga contest with him, but Liam's just not interested. The draw for Ody is that the judges have some really big names in the manga world. I didn't recognise all the names, but I recognised most of the work, even if I hadn't read them. Ody mentions the creators of Dragon Ball, One Piece, My Hero Academia, a few others I haven't heard of, but that's no surprise. Liam's unmoved by these names. He still thinks the team would be better served getting their core product completed and proving they have the right stuff to make it as manga creators. Invoking the fiery passion of the ginger, Liam challenges Ody to give him a reason to care about this contest, and Ody unknowingly does just that. He mentions that the final judge will be a representative of Tezuka Productions, a company built by the creator of Astro Boy. Liam tells the story of his rough upbringing and how Astro Boy's adventures and Tezuka's unwillingness to talk down to his young audience helped Liam get through hard times and inspired him to be a writer. Anyone who has listened to one of Liam's live streams has probably heard his hard luck story before. It seems like he genuinely had a tough life. When he said that Astro Boy really mattered to him, that it was a big part of his childhood, that really got to me. I still choke up a bit when I hear the Astro Boy outro song. It's just so sad, and Astro Boy's story is so tragic. It made me realise real early on that life isn't fair. I didn't have a tough upbringing like Liam, but I can understand how a fictional character can help a young child form ideas at an early age. Invigorated by the chance to interact with Tezuka's legacy, Liam commits to creating a manga for the contest and says whether the duo wins or loses, they'll at least be able to say thank you to the creators that inspired and continue to inspire them. It's a genuine feel-good moment, and the back and forth between Liam and Odie is genuinely funny. You get the feeling they work well as a team, and there's clearly a lot of respect between the duo. Despite the end logo at the bottom of the page, Odie goes off script, convinced that 14 pages isn't enough to win them the contest. The book was pretty meta beforehand, with them talking about creating a manga within the very manga they're talking about creating, but only gets more so from here on out. Determined to win the contest at any price, Liam relinquishes his control over plot and narrative and enters a free-form stream of consciousness mode. Immediately a vast demonic presence is freed and a pretty girl shows up like Kyle Reese with boobs moments too late. She warns the unleashed being will run rampart and never end, creating that dreaded beast all authors fear but secretly share. The saga. Liam warns Odie that storytellers must always serve the audience, not their own whims, else the story will never end, and in this case an unending manga will get them both disqualified. This begins a huge manga battle between Mangaka Odie, who rips his shirt away Fist of the North Star style, and Saga, which manifests as a vast, over-fiend-style demon of shadow and narration. Liam offers Odie verbal and spiritual support from the sidelines as Odie brings his raw talents and training to bear against the overwhelming power of Saga. This fight is a fluid, fun, impactful battle of words, wits, and willpower. Eventually consumed by Saga, the trio undergo an endless series of adventures and break free of the story cycle, changed by their trials, but ever determined to defeat Saga and complete the story within the page limit. This manga is a very clever meta-commentary on the state of the industry, both Western and manga. Liam includes dozens of manga callbacks that even I recognise. I can't imagine how many I missed that others will catch. He writes a story about writing stories. He writes a narrative that proves he knows how to write a narrative. This story follows the very conventions his character lauds as correct storytelling while avoiding the ones he says are bad. He very cleverly proves he can write a story by writing a story about writing stories. This all culminates in a genuinely powerful scene where Odie's digital ink, his ability to create imagery, fails to defeat Saga when his tablet breaks. Saga strikes Liam with such a blow that he fades away, becoming pages of an untold story, and, desperate to finish the book he began, Odie plunges his stylus into his heart, drawing forth his own lifeblood with which to continue to make art. Realising that art doesn't define your life, rather it comes from your very life force, Odie is able to vanquish Saga, and promises to never stop telling stories, that this story is just the beginning of his own saga. With that revelation, Liam is able to reform, and Odie realises the book wasn't a gag manga at all, it was something much more. The two rededicate themselves to conquering the manga world, setting off to finish the second book they entered into the contest, Xenotype Pursuit. This book could be seen as both proof of concept and manifesto. In reading this, you'll see Liam's skill in creating a story as well as his very conscious understanding of what makes a good story. It's an opportunity for him to sound off about what he thinks matters when it comes to being a storyteller, and I can't disagree with any of his points. The action is huge, in your face and frenetic. I find some of it hard to follow, maybe because of the reverse reading order, or maybe some of those manga conventions that I still don't quite understand, but it's a mortal man battling a gigantic city-crunching demon of unending, out-of-control storytelling power. It's a battle for the soul of the comic book industry and a flag planted in foreign territory by a creative duo who are proving they can hang with the big boys of manga.